Until Dawn is a choice-driven, narrative-focused game, much like titles from TellTale and Quantic Dream. Basically, it's an 80s horror film that you can control. Your decisions determine if the cast of teenagers survive till dawn, and no one is sacred. Everyone can die. Until Dawn is set on a snowy Canadian mountain where 8 friends have come together, not to party as is the usual for this sort of thing, but to commemorate a tragedy that occurred a year ago. I was impressed by developer Supermassive's willingness to take its time setting the stage for what's to come. The first few chapters consist mostly of mundane conversations between the cast characters and teaching you mechanics in harmless ways such as a snowball fight.
Bat! Stay the hell away from me!
These mechanics are fairly basic. General movement is sort of awkward. Navigating the game's tight, directed environments can sometimes feel like walking through thigh-high water. Everything is just a tad slower than you would expect. You slowly traverse woods, cabins, and caves with the flashlight out, carefully combing your surroundings for clues. L1 functions as a sort of run button, but it only speeds you up from a peaceful stroll to a brisk power walk. Certainly it's not as egregious as the tank controls found in old-school Resident Evil or Silent Hill, but it's still not ideal. Once the screaming and the running starts, most of the action is decided through QuickTime events. Again, if you've played TellTale's stuff, you know what to expect. And that's fine. The focus here is story and choices, not combat. And the few times that you do use a weapon, the game slows down and gives you a moment to pick your target. There are some moments, especially later on, where your character will have to hide and you have to hold still for a few seconds. In these instances, the game tracks your controller for motion. I didn't have any issues in my initial playthrough with this, but when we went back to record our Let's Play, it did give us some trouble. Most of the game's choices are binary, left or right, yes or no, though you normally have the option to just not do anything as well. What makes these decisions interesting is the butterfly effect and how it's tracked. The game keeps a log of everything you do, showing stats for whatever character you're playing as at the moment. Attributes such as honesty, bravery, humor, and romance rise and fall as you choose your words and actions. What these attributes determine is how the 8 characters treat each other when you aren't in direct control. I realized that since you're not just one specific member of the group, but all of them at different points in time, I benefited very little from being cruel to someone unless I had to, especially as interactions escalated from catty arguments over an ex-boyfriend to life or death situations where someone you've scorned in the past may leave you to die. Until Dawn makes its plethora of collectible items actually matter. Finding clues not only helps piece together the bigger picture in the player's mind, but the characters as well. A character's understanding of the situation they're in is altered depending on if they've discovered the right information. This leads to change in dialogue and conversations. It's sort of minor, but still very cool and makes that aspect feel less video gamey. On top of newspaper clippings and old photographs, you can also find totems scattered around the world. These give you a quick glimpse into the future, often showing you some terrible event, so hopefully you can avoid it. I don't think there's a lot I can say about the plot without giving much away, but I did enjoy its twists and turns. I just wish the game hadn't relied so much on jump scares to frighten its audience. It has great atmosphere, and it doesn't need loud noises and things popping out of the screen to be creepy. With that said, one area that could be improved is that very early on, half of the cast goes in separate directions and doesn't come back until much later. This seems fine at first, but looking back on the antagonist's goals and knowing the overall story, it doesn't make sense that they would be allowed to do that. This also leads to some of the cast doing way more over the course of the story than others.
I would like to understand your feelings toward people of fear, isolation, loneliness. Do you share this fear?
In between the main chapters of the game are short segments where you speak to a therapist, played by Peter Stormare. These bits mostly seem to exist to extract information out of the players about their fears, which is then reflected in the story. Don't like spiders? Clowns? Needles? Well good, now they're going to make an appearance in your journey. The strange thing is that these bits are way more unsettling than the story chapters. The way that the therapist character becomes more and more hostile towards you, and the room mutates and darkens every time you have to visit is really creepy. Especially since through most of the game, he seems to be speaking directly to you, the player, judging your decisions. It feels like Supermassive wanted to give some sort of introspective commentary about the enjoyment of the horror genre, which is fine, but unfortunately this sort of thing falls apart once the curtain is pulled back about 3/4 of the way through the story. Until Dawn is a great horror game with a fun mystery, an interesting twist, and some sluggish controls and 1 or 2 logic issues. Then again, most horror movies have that problem, so whatever. If you want some spooky entertainment as we draw closer to the Halloween season, be sure to check out Until Dawn.
Once again, I'm afraid we're out of time. We'll talk again soon.